Chapter 7 has a lot of information and missing pieces in it. For us, it answered how we got from the murder of Jeff McCoy to the states of Kentucky and West Virginia almost going to war again. Also, we have been briefly introduced to the character of Perry Cline before now. However, Cline will play more of a role in what happens to the feud from this point forward. We will also be introduced to Frank Phillips as he begins his raids to arrest the Hatfields and free the McCoys across the Tug River. We will be reading from the chapter directly with the discussion to follow next week. All aboard the Kentucky Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seatbelts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine for our flight back in time, but it convinces the YouTube algorithm that we need a bigger vehicle to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. The reading of the newspaper article. Quote, Chapter 7, Efforts to Bring the Hatfields to Justice. The death of Jeff McCoy led to the first efforts worthy of the name to bring the Hatfields to trial for their crimes. Jeff was the nephew of Perry Cline, a leading lawyer of Pike County. Lawyer Cline set about getting rewards offered for the arrest of the murderers, not only of Jeff McCoy, but of Talbert Farmer and Little Randolph McCoy. $100 each was the sum offered. Two of Jeff's brothers, Bud and Jake, heard that Wallace was working on the extension of the railroad along the Big Sandy and went down there and got him. He was in Pikeville jail 4 weeks, and then one night, when a son of Perry Cline carried food to the prisoners, Cline being the jailer, the boy was overpowered and all hands escaped, including John C. McCoy, who was in for a stabbing not connected with the feud. The escape of Tom incited Perry Cline to further efforts, and application was made to Governor Willis Wilson of West Virginia for a requisition for the indicted men. Up to this time, politics had nothing to do with the feud, but it now entered in. In the office of the Secretary of State of West Virginia was one John B. Floyd, a nephew of the member of the President Buchanan's cabinet of that name. Floyd aspired to be his party's candidate for governor, and to that end, wished to have his county solid behind him. His home was in Logan County, and he knew the Hatfields personally. They are a most prolific race and were powerful political workers in the mountains. Floyd heard of the application to Governor Wilson and sent word to the Hatfields. Under his instructions, they got up a petition saying that they were peaceful mountain farmers who had been greatly oppressed and abused by the relatives of a Kentucky desperado named Randolph McCoy, and praying that the governor would not further the ends of the Kentucky villain by giving them over to be tried. The Hatfield regulators rode up and down the creeks and branches of half of Logan County, carrying their repeating rifles and their petition. Every man met signed the petition with alacrity. Nevertheless, Governor Wilson was for a time persuaded to issue a requisition. While negotiations pended, Governor Buckner offered $500 reward each for Bad Ants, Cap, and John C. Hatfield, Tom Mitchell, under the name of Chambers, and Tom Wallace. Along in October 1887, Governor Wilson wrote to the county attorney Lee Ferguson of Pike County, saying that if $52 was sent to pay the expenses incurred by Clerk John B. Floyd while investigating the case papers for the arrest of all the indicted men, save Elias and Wall Hatfield and Andy Varney, would be issued. At this stage, a new man became involved in the feud. and he has since become the object of the most deadly hatred of the Hatfields and the contempt of even the McCoys, yet he is protected in Pike County. It was Deputy Sheriff Frank Phillips. He was appointed state agent for Kentucky to receive West Virginia prisoners. Phillips sent on a part of the $52 demanded by Governor Wilson and asked for the papers for Cap, Chauncey, and Anse Hatfield, and Tom Mitchell, who, however, was called Tom Chambers in the indictment. Tom was born out of wedlock, and one Tom Chambers subsequently married his mother. So he was called both Chambers and Mitchell. The error in the papers led to the arrest of his stepfather. Without waiting for the arrival of the papers, which, by the way, never came, Phillips, with Jim and Sam McCoy, sons of Randolph, started over to Virginia to bring in the 4 Logan men named, or any other indicted men they could find. They supposed Tom Chambers, the stepfather of Tom Mitchell, was the one the 4 wanted. They got to Tom's house at 11 o'clock on the night of December 9th, 1887. Tom was in bed. A bright coal fire burned in the hearth within, and a bright and unusually large bulldog stood guard outside. The 3 men dismounted with Sam at the front door and Jim and Phillips at the rear. Jim broke in the rear door, and at the same moment, the bulldog took a grip on Phillips' thighs. Phillips shot the dog with one revolver and held another on Chambers and made him surrender. The next raid was made on December 20th. Frank Phillips, Jim McCoy, and his cousin Bud, the murdered Jeff McCoy's brother, went up in McDowell County, West Virginia, and found Selkirk McCoy and Mose Christian in a little crossroads store near Perryville and brought them safely to Pikeville Jail. These 2 raids incited the Hatfields to a sort of revenge that horrified the people, not only of both counties, but of everyone else that ever heard the story. Even Bad Ants himself has talked against it. Unquote. In next week's video, we will be starting with Perry Cline and the part he had to play in the feud. Was he really trying to help the McCoy family, or did he have an axe to grind of his own? We will walk through one of the most controversial characters in the history of the Hatfield and McCoys feud. Thank you. Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the myths and truths of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. Please be sure to double check that you are subscribed, as some of our viewers are finding that they are no longer subscribed to our channel. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.